Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4, playing with the preview version very early of Third Reich Events mod. So, let's continue with this here. We have a very interesting. We had smashed through originally through here, and then the French counterattack opened that up, but we've opened up another channel here through Belgium. No, I don't want you to support that attack, because I don't want to leave the province undefended if you... So you're already supporting that attack. Shifting forces around too much. Belgium has capitulated. Good. Okay, well, we will run some of them. That's great. And here, let's see. You guys go there. Support that attack. Now let's give you a general. Yeah, launch. Just bursting everywhere. Driving into everybody. Who wants to join the faction? Oh, Romania. Yes, 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 yes. Invite to faction. Get Antonescu in. There. Yeah. What do we need of still? Okay, more anti-aircraft. Light tanks. Well, we want to sort of... Oh, we've had a massive... Okay, well... I mean, this is what we're going to do, even though this is the middle of the campaign, and I hope to get the campaign over with before I did this, but... Let's go to armored battalions, and we're going to put in a medium... Replace that with a medium tank battalion. We're also going to build some more of these guys. Oh, yeah, it should be. Yeah. Okay, good. We now have Romania in. And since we now have Romania in, what's our trade in oil with Romania like now? Okay, not as good as we want. I've corrected that in future versions of this. Yes, okay, so basically what happens here is we have set up with the tripartite pact a bonus for the nations, as you see there, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's been a little while. I don't know that everybody's watching all the episodes. And I figure that between Italy and Germany get their Pact of Steel, Pact of Steel bonus here. Is that yeah, whatever. I've updated this a lot and have the right thing, but they get this bonus. Just these two. The rest of the nations get the tripartite. All of the tripartite nations get this as well. So you see here, because they're so near each other, obviously sharing a border there, and they're majors, they get 3% efficiency additionally in research time, and resource 6%. No, sorry, 5%. Resource gain efficiency, meaning better mining, better whatever. So I sort of look at this as whether it's through conquests or if it's through just stuff in their national territories. There's a bit better trading going on, so you get a little better resources coming through there because they're right on each other. Now the rest get the tripartite pact bonuses, political power gain. Hey, you're not in this alone. That's Antonescu there, standing up, reading his prepared statements. That's von Ribbentrop. That's the Japanese ambassador. I'm forgetting his name. There were two of them. This is sort of the this guy here, and I can't remember his name. I'm reasonably good with Japanese names. He was the special envoy sent after about this period. Well, in a few months, over to the U.S. We already had a Japanese ambassador into the U.S., but he was sent over to negotiate removal of the embargoes against Japan, and when that failed, Japan attacked. Pearl Harbor was their answer to the thing. But so he moves on to the U.S. I don't think that's Chiano, but that's Italy. This is one of the head of the Iron Guard type guys in Romania. But so the political power bonus here is, hey, we're not in this alone. There's more of us here. Propaganda and various things. Research time, obviously, and you'll see this in the in TRE. I've made a whole event chain of partially dealing off of Vlad Virgil's very good contributions, who he is Romanian, to Third Reich events for the Hearts of Iron 3. Worked off of what he gave me, expanded it even more with the German-Romanian relationship and covering it. And so there was several missions, basically a sort of an overall, but basically a mission. But then there was an Army, an Air Force, and a naval mission to Romania that worked on training Romanian forces, supplying them with equipment, trying to upgrade their production facilities. All of this was all going on around this time, late 39 into 40, even before the situation here of giving off territory to Russia and to Hungary and Bulgaria. They had already started on prepping and improving Romania's armed forces. So, in research time reduction, because, training theoretically helps them, with researching new tactical doctrines. And so, that all sort of comes in and helps there. And resource efficiency gain, 5%. And it's obvious it's a percent, so it's a, Germany's getting its 5%, which is obviously a larger production economy. Romania is smaller, so this 5% is much smaller. Efficiency gain there, so it does help, but just in a minor way. There was a fair amount of labor moving around this period. Some of it at the slave labor levels. Others, once you get like the fall of France, France had a quota of labor that it needed to supply to Germany. The Germans weren't terribly concerned about how France fulfilled that quota, and they started with very much trying to get pure volunteers, work in Germany, better food, better pay, whatever, that type of stuff, for France and most of the Western countries. Got down to basically sort of what would be a conscription or a draft, in that these aren't slaves in the sense that they're in a camp behind barbed wire and starved to death like Jews and Soviet prisoners that were working in labor. There was definitely that going on. I'm not saying it wasn't going on, but that was not how the labor coming out of Western Europe was done. It was conscripted, sometimes very locally. You're going to come out and help build the Atlantic Wall fortifications. Other times it was, you're going to go move to Germany to work in a factory. But when I'm talking conscription here, and it was with the collaboration of French authorities, so they were government authorities. They were helping to determine who was liable for this conscription, men and women. But you would be housed in, maybe a bit crowded, I'm not saying, because obviously cities were being bombed, people were being dislocated, so it wasn't necessarily a picking out of foreigners or you to be subject, individuals to be subject to bad housing. It was just the chaos of the time. So yes, it may have been cramped, but it was generally civilian type housing. You had ration books, you had pay, and you had, talked a little bit about this, but you had your, your Ausweises, your sort of, identification papers. And so, they said that you were supposed to be in Hamburg working at this factory. So yeah, on the weekends or whenever your time off was, yeah, you can go in and around the environs of Hamburg and do sort of whatever you wanted, go on a picnic or walk around the town or whatever it might be. Obviously, as the war dragged on, see Dresden here, the bombings, it's not it's not a nice place to be, and then more and more chaos happened. But so that you couldn't just leave your area if you were found significantly outside of your area, especially if you're a foreign worker, whether you volunteered to go to work for Germany or you were conscripted to work, you were now in trouble to some degree. If you're outside, it's 5 miles out, you were walking along, whatever. 30, 40 miles out starts to become a problem once you're through the various organs, whether it be just the railway workers that were uniformed, or the SA that was very much still around, or various Gestapo SS type units, or the general just German police, or all kinds of people checking passes. You would be picked up. So now in say 42, 43, sure, if you're a Western worker, you can probably get a week off to go visit, pass to go visit your family in France or Belgium or whatever, and then you need to go back, and that kind of thing. So there was that's what I would call conscripted labor, meaning you didn't necessarily have a choice whether it was the Germans directly conscripting you or whether it was your local government doing a conscription thing. But that is not, because it's forced labor, yes, but it is not slave labor. There is a difference. There is a distinction and a difference. Obviously, the Germans use slave labor, and one of the things I'm thinking about now is out here in the Channel Islands here that were British. They definitely conscripted local labor to build some of the fortifications that they fortified on the islands here. Obviously, they're not shown on this map because they've simplified the map way too much, in my opinion. But there also had moved out Soviet prisoners that were controlled mostly by Organization Todt was controlling the construction, but they were under guard 24 hours a day by Organization Todt, kept behind barbed wire, and when they were moved outside of the barbed wire, they were guards with submachine guns on them while they're building some bunkers or whatever, tunneling in, and they were very harshly treated. So that that was pure slave labor, where the locals were just sort of like, you need to provide 8 hours of labor today or whatever, and it's a different condition. They're both a level of force, most assuredly used, but it's a different condition. So, but like I was saying, that there was a fair amount of labor also moving around in this part of the region with the Allies. Farm workers, because you're moving lots of workers or lots of young men to be soldiers. So some of these populations in here, a little older, a little younger, female, that weren't going to be soldiers. They didn't have enough modern industrial factories necessarily to employ all these people, or needed to, but Germany did, so that they brought in labor from Hungary or Romania to work. And again, since these are allied nations, these are treated in a similar fashion to, and maybe a bit more for the allied nations, in that they didn't have to meet German quotas I don't have much information, but I do know that there was a fair amount of, I don't know what that means, a few thousand or tens of thousands, I really don't know, but there was definitely a recruiting drive to get people from these parts of the world, that their allies, to have some labor to come up and work in various German factories. And most of this was, enticed, you know, you know, you want food, you're out of work down here, and you don't have money to pay for food. This isn't the socialist paradise in which, hey, you just go on unemployment or they'll just give you money. No, they need labor somewhere, so you come up to Germany, we pay you, you get good ration books, and you have money for food, and all this stuff, and so you can live within the context of the war reasonably well. So that's a lot of what they're done. So this is why I look at this as with the resource gain efficiency, and that it's all helping out balance between the countries without necessarily going to the drastic level of one factory for 8 of a particular resource up here. It's just a little minor bonus to everything. So that's how I've done this. So as these nations that historically joined a tripartite pact come in, they get this bonus. Now if the tripartite pact doesn't exist, meaning if you don't have Germany, Italy, and Japan in it, it will never form and you'll never get these bonuses. So you have to keep that in mind as to, do you want to pursue a pro-Chinese or pro-Japanese policy if Japan loses? Don't know if there's what's going to happen if Japan loses. Hadn't thought about that one, quite honestly. Just hadn't thought about it. They have to join. I wonder what happens if they're no longer there. That's interesting. Might think about coding that one. But because there was a fair amount of trade going on between Japan and the European Axis powers, some of it was literally smuggled, in that ships would leave port somewhere in Axis control, Japanese controlled territory here, filled with goods Germany needed, and they would, I think most cases I've read that they had come out here and went through the Mediterranean this way, through Gibraltar and through Suez, disguised to Japan. I don't know if I've read of any coming back that way, but disguised as either a neutral ship, Swedish or Spanish or something, or often they were disguised as a Norwegian or Dutch, often Dutch ships that were theoretically, and that were exiled ships that were operating for the Allies. And so they would have a few Dutchmen on board, but enough German speakers speaking Dutch well enough that would fool. And they wouldn't ever go into any ports, but they'd have to come through the Suez, and the British would come on and check their papers and let them through. So there were several of those types of things moving supplies between, and these were critical war supplies between the countries. They were doing that. Late in the war, they were doing some submarines going back and forth filled with supplies. Obviously, that's just a minor thing. When the Germans were occupying in this territory down here, just north of the Caucasus, they were able to fly some of their long-range transports over to Japanese-held territories, and they could make a one-way trip on a fuel of, on a full tanks to here. And obviously that they were loading up lots of fuel, so you couldn't carry very much weight, but they were doing some of that back and forth. And so, and now in Japan, and as like currently this state, very much so, it's still at peace with everybody. Sure, there's an embargo with the U.S. Now Italy's in the war, but Yugoslavia's not, Bulgaria and Romania are not, and so a Japanese or a Romanian ship could, one path or another, go to a Japanese-held port, pick up resources that critical resources that Japan has access to, come there, and and obviously take some stuff that Germany has access to in Europe that Japan needs, back and forth. And it's just a minor thing, but it's what did happen on a minor level. And because we can't easily, it can be done, but can't easily expand it too much, is once, if you take the Suez and you take a few of these other places, you could have free flow of goods coming from Indonesia and things like that. Now, of course, on a major scale, you start just simply using the game mechanics. So that's why I look at that as necessary to have all three of the majors in it, and then as the minors join, they start getting... They don't have to actually join the war, they just have to join the pact. We've turned that around. You attack there. You attack there. And more factories. Now we're getting lots more factories than we can really deal too much with for resources. So let's see now. We are short of a lot of aluminum because we are building a lot of aircraft. But Hungary has a bunch of that. So let's go for aluminum there. That'll help out a lot. And let's get some more tungsten from Portugal. Helps out. Anti-air still, and a lot more fighters we need. We need ground support and tactical bombers, which will need. Even more aluminum, of course. Even more fighters. Into production. No, how are you doing here? Okay. Well. We're going to have to research more. Oh, and we need to move all of these down. Oh, good. Okay, now we've got these guys. Back here. Back there. By the fort so they don't invade us. Support that attack. Support. Nah, I think they will escape, but okay, improved infantry equipment. That is most excellent. With our newer version of PRE, the basic equipment becomes Gewehr or GEW 98. The 36 becomes the CAR 98K. This becomes the MP38, and this becomes the MP44. So I've added, the only changes are immersion names as opposed to changing any stats, but I'm doing some of that too, as well as the artillery and the anti-tank guns are now given the appropriate German names as close as we can to the models, you know, Pack 36, Pack 40, that kind of thing. So that will help out. We will now do that because we'll build more synthetic oil factories effectively. Okay, now they're no longer being attacked, so they get to counterattack. Okay, in Luxembourg. Now, we should be having a few extra garrison divisions here, so let's send them down to Luxembourg there to reduce partisans. Okay, now we can, when we feel we're ready for it, we can go after Norway. Still just there and they're coming, so. Okay, so they retreated out of there, so that's fine. What we wanted to have happen, but at least it's not a situation where we... Lost units. Let's put pressure on them. Urban assault should be becoming a good... No, he's not. Should be becoming a good fortress. You're type guy, but oh well. Good, he'll help there. Good, we've got a little pocket going, that's nice. You are already a hurry into there. Take out 4 divisions, the English and 1 of the French. That's good. Haas units going up there. Okay. Support that attack. Pushed in there. Oh, this has been abandoned. Let's see if we can occupy it. No, I want you to make it. I'll try to occupy this again, see if we can. That attack. That attack. More factories to build more aircraft. Okay. Now, we are going to... Right there. The wild ace appears, okay. I want you to support the attack. That attack and support that. You support that attack. Okay, well, we're going to end the episode here. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. This has been sort of a fun invasion of France. Been enjoying it, so hope you have been enjoying watching it. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.